As we begin the book of Genesis, we want to focus on what the text says. There will be many questions, especially here in the beginning, no pun intended, about creation, origins, and how it all happened versus evolution. But the Bible itself simply assumes that God exists and that He created everything. Space, time, heaven, earth, atoms, quarks, neutrons, protons, all of it. It's beyond our ability in this summary to provide answers to every objection or question that could possibly be raised. The goal here is simple: provide a basic understanding of what the text says and encourage you to do more research and ask questions about any topic that our reading inspires. Just know this: if God created the scientific laws that we use to explore the universe with, then science, when properly done, will not contradict things written in the scriptures, and it will never be able to prove that God does not exist. The book was written to help Israel, a newly formed nation that had just left Egypt, a nation full of idolatry and full of their own speculations about how the world formed. Israel needed to know two things: who God is and where did Israel come from. The first 11 chapters provide useful information. We learn about creation, sin, the flood, where other nations and languages came from. And then we follow their famous ancestor Abraham and his descendants down into Egypt. There's a lot to look at in this chapter, so let's get started. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. These 10 words in English and 7 words in Hebrew declare to us how the universe came to be. The heavens and the earth were created ex nihilo. That is, out of nothing. There was no pre-existing material. God spoke and it came into being. As the psalmist will say, "For He spoke and it came to be. He commanded and it stood firm." Verse 2 tells us that the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. Picture it: formless, empty, dark. And then God begins to shape His creation over 7 days. The Bible presents the creation account in a way that sounds exactly like what it says: 7 days. Now, there are a lot of theories floating around, many of which are based in some form of evolution, basically with the effect of saying that 7 days is figurative and each day is thousands or millions of years in length. And while it's important that we listen to what science says, there are easy to see limitations to what science can tell us about a supernatural creation. Consider this: science tells us that it takes hundreds of years for a giant sequoia tree to grow to maturity, and really it does. But when God created trees on day 3, do you think He planted seeds and just waited? No, He created mature trees with complete with rings, branches, and leaves. Now, if you had examined one of those trees a week after creation, you wouldn't have seen a sapling, you would have seen a fully grown tree. And the same thing with Adam. If you looked at Adam a week after God made him, you wouldn't be looking at a baby, but a full-grown man. God creates things complete and functional. The point is simple: God doesn't need time the way we do. Science and the laws of science are created by God. Good science will not contradict Scripture, and good Bible study will not ignore good science. But we must remember that God is not bound by the natural processes that He Himself put in place. I look at this and see 7 literal days of creation. Each day begins at evening. This was and still is the Jewish way of counting days. The evening is the beginning of the next day. As God goes through the creation, each day builds on the previous one. Day 1, God creates light and separates it from darkness, calling them day and night. We notice here that the sun hasn't been created yet. Light itself existed before the sun. Day 2, God created the expanse, the sky, separating waters above from the waters below. Day 3, God gathers the waters together, forming dry land and seas. Then He creates vegetation, plants, and trees that bear fruit and seed. Day 4, God creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. These govern the day and the night. They mark seasons and years, and they serve as signs. Day 5, God fills the waters with sea creatures and the sky with birds. He blesses them and commands them to be fruitful and multiply. And day 6, God creates land animals, livestock, creeping things, and beasts of the earth. Then comes the pinnacle of creation, humanity. Now, day 7 will be discussed in chapter 2, where we see God resting from His work. But in this chapter, there are so many wonderful things to see, Where do you even start? Perhaps for us, it's worth focusing on two things. First, God exists. Let me restate that. First, God exists, and He created this world that we live in. John tells us that Jesus was the creative force, that all things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything was made that was made. The Psalms declare, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above His handiwork. Creation itself testifies to the Creator. Second, while God made many things in the world, of all the things and creatures He created, we, humanity, are the crowning achievement. Verse 26 says, let us make man in our image after our likeness. God has an image, and we are made in that image. All of us, all people, all races. Of course, all races descend from Adam, so really, we're all one race, the human race. We also see that humanity, created as male and female, is given dominion over all creation. This is our position in God's creation, stewards in charge of what He made. Dominion doesn't mean exploitation. It means responsible care under God's authority. One other little detail that might escape notice is verse 30, where God says He has given us every plant for food. It isn't until later He expands that permission to include animals for food. So it seems a good conclusion that Adam and Eve were vegetarians. Maybe Mom was right when she told us that we should eat our fruits and vegetables. As for application, first, knowing where we came from gives us both purpose and dignity. We sometimes struggle with the question, what is my purpose? But we know that we are not a cosmic accident. God is a planner. The order of creation shows everything was ready for us when He made us. We are made in His image. Every person, regardless of race, age, ability, or status, bears the image of God. This is the foundation of how we treat one another. When we devalue a human life, we devalue the image of God Himself. When we love our neighbor, we honor the one in whose image our neighbor is made. Second, God provides what we need. In the beginning, it was the earth fully populated with trees, animals, and the food we needed. As we go through the rest of Genesis and see our needs change, God will show that He can and will provide for those needs as well. The third application is that God's order matters. Notice the sequence of creation. Light before life, plants before animals, land and sea before creatures to inhabit them. God doesn't create randomly. He creates with purpose and order. There's intentionality in everything He does. We should seek to reflect that same intentionality in how we live and how we work. Tomorrow, Lord willing, we will continue into chapter 2, where we are introduced to the seventh day and the creation of man is given again in a little more detail. With each chapter, we will learn more about ourselves and God's plans. And with each chapter, we will continue to renew our minds.